All right, welcome back to Healing Your Relationships Summit. This is the place to find where your happily ever after is. And what I found in my work is that not all relationships are created equal, and neither are the answers. And that's the reason I gathered all these experts from all over the country with all these different unique skills that'll give us many options on how to heal our relationships. Hi, my name is Roger House, and I'll be your host today. Today, I'm really excited. I have the author of 90-Minute Marriage Miracle, Jeff Forte. You know, Jeff is not just an author, but he's an expert in divorce prevention and marriage repair, and I love that word repair. In fact, I want to start our interview here with asking you a little bit about the word repair, Jeff. And by the way, welcome.
Oh, Roger, great to be with you. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this summit. It's an exciting venture for me. So if two people fall in love and they have this high sense of connection with each other, something happens down the road. And what does it take to bring that high sense of connection, that chemistry back? So in my opinion, something starts out pretty well, and then it drifts off, falls apart gradually, quickly. So it needs to be repaired. And the people who seek my guidance are sometimes in desperate need of repair, on the edge of divorce, or somebody's left, affairs. There's a whole host of things that can happen that require a relationship to be the couple to be put back together.
Ah, okay. I get you there. You know, I know we're going to be talking about the 3 basic steps that you share with people. But before that, I want to know a little bit about you, you know, and how you got into this business in the first place. So tell me a little bit, could you?
Absolutely. So I'm in this. I'm a relationship expert out of necessity. I got divorced myself 24 years ago. And I went through traditional couples counseling, which proved to be a catalyst for my own divorce. There was no thought about how to get to the real issues in this particular couples counseling. And I was just flabbergasted by, there's got to be something better. And then when I remarried 5 years later, my wife and I started to struggle. And I said, I'm not going to put myself back through that couples counseling again. I'm going to figure it out. And at the time, I was a regional team development leader for a Wall Street firm, and I would go around resolving interpersonal conflicts with type A personalities in these teams, high ego, mostly men. And so I decided, well, let me try some of those ideas with my wife, see what happens. Well, lo and behold, much to my surprise, the ideas worked right away. And I thought, well, if that works, what else works? And so I began this phase of experimentation with my wife, unbeknownst to her, trying these things out to see what would work now, not in 6 months or 6 weeks, but what works today. And then when I left the industry to start a coaching practice about 12 years ago, I was resolving stressful situations in the workplace with business execs. And when I dug into their situations, I found out that often the stress was caused by a dysfunctional relationship at home. So I started resolving these marriage issues for the business folks and led to writing a book. And now people reach out to me from all over the world. So I came here out of my own necessity to fix my marriage, kicking and screaming, so to speak. And now I'm the most surprised guy that I would actually write a book on marriage. And here I am doing this work. I didn't intend for this to exist.
Well, by everything I've read and seen and experienced about you so far, I'm so glad that this all, no offense. But
goes my wife. We have a great marriage. I'm very fortunate to have figured it out.
Awesome. I just love that. I was going to ask you the difference between a couples counselor and yourself, and you kind of gave me that. Oh, let's get a little bit more precise about that. What's the difference?
Well, the approach that couples counselors take, now every couples counselor is different, so I'm going to generalize a little bit.
Sure.
Primarily, though, most people think that communication is the greatest challenge in a relationship. And so they often work on communication skills, listening skills, feedback, playing back what you thought you heard, allowing somebody to share how they feel, listening intently, patiently, waiting your turn. Those things are all great, but they don't get to the real issues in the relationship. So in my opinion, working on communication is a smokescreen and a distraction from the real issues in the relationship. Something is causing communication to struggle. So I don't spend any time at all ever working on communication, and that's the bulk of what couples counselors do. And the other aspect of couples counseling is some of the solutions are often simplistic. Oh, you guys just need a date night. I often hear this because most people find me after failed couples counseling. Well, they told us to go have a date night. We can't even talk to each other, but now they want us to have a date night.
Yeah.
I walk on eggshells around them, but they want us to have a date night. I don't even want to be near them, but they want us to have a date night. So some of the ideas behind couples counseling seem awfully simplistic. And because they often go your version, her version, or her version, your version, people tend to leave a little bit more resentful because a couple doesn't see eye to eye on the issues that exist in the relationship. So airing the issues, in my opinion, is a mistake until you work on what's most important, in my opinion, which is connection. So I spend a lot of time helping people get reconnected. If you feel connected with somebody, then anything is solvable. But if you feel disconnected, not only do you not want to talk to them, you might not necessarily even want to be around them. You might feel uncomfortable with them. You might avoid them. So those are some of the biggest differences that I see.
I totally appreciate that because I have gone through that. Let's communicate. It's like, what? We can't even be in the same room together.
Right. Yeah.
So, with everything you've said there, I know you have, which I really want to get into, is you have 3 basic steps to create marriage repair. Can you go through those steps one by one and kind of walk through that with people?
So in my opinion, people make mistakes unknowingly, and it's these little mistakes that are devastating to the relationship. My thought is that we tend to model what we saw in our parents or role models. And what we saw, we tend to repeat. So if I didn't experience or witness a highly affectionate, love-filled, joyful relationship growing up, how am I going to figure that out? Where am I going to learn that? So my dad left when I was 14. So my idea of who a man was in a relationship wasn't very successful. So I did repeat some of my father's patterns in my first marriage. Not knowingly, not intentionally, it's just what I saw and experienced. And so my operating principle is because the divorce rates are so high in the US, most marriages are not happy. People might hang out. In my estimation, divorce rates are around 50-ish. But how many of those are happy?
Yeah.
Maybe 10%. That's about it. So we're going to see people who are making mistakes unknowingly, unintentionally, because they don't know better. So education is a really important part of what I do. And so in order to stop the decline, I've got to know what it is that I'm doing that's not working. And I don't put it in the light of right, wrong, good, bad, only from this little lens of a perspective, which is what I'm doing useful, beneficial, or supportive to getting me what I want? And if I do the things that are only useful, beneficial, or supportive to love and passion and connection and intimacy, the marriage is going to thrive. But I have to know what those things are.
Got it. So it sounds like step 1 of your steps is the decline, or stop the decline of the relationship. Is that what I heard you say?
Absolutely. So if I'm no longer making these unintentional mistakes, the relationship should stop going down and should begin to stabilize.
Okay.
And then actually that's step 2, which is to stabilize the connection between the couple.
Okay.
When there are mistakes, conflicts, errors, not seeing eye to eye, there's a whole host of things that come up that cause a couple to separate. to feel disconnected from each other. So my role is to help them stabilize the connection. And for me, that's not a communication issue. That's a behavioral issue. What do I need to do in order to create a connection with my wife? What does my wife need to do behaviorally in order to sustain the connection with me? So these are step-by-step types of issues that I teach the couple individually what each partner should do in order to sustain and even elevate the connection. But before anything else happens, you have to stabilize it to make sure that the connection is solid. Okay. Nothing else is solvable without feeling connected.
Okay, I want to back up a second, just sure. Because I really want to get some meat. I want to pull some stuff out of you.
Yep.
That stop decline of the decline. Okay, us as guys, we are stubborn. I mean, let's just say it as it is. We're stubborn, and we have that tendency of not wanting to, talk to our partner when we're pissed off. We want to go into our caves. So how are we going to stop let's give them some tips how both the man and the woman can stop the decline in their relationship.
So that's a great question. When there's a disconnect in a relationship, that means that both partners are not being themselves, nor do they understand necessarily what their role is. So in my opinion, again, I'm going to generalize a little bit because every situation is unique. In my opinion, my role is to be strong, to be solid emotionally, to be this place that my wife can count on to be safe, to be herself without being judged, right? So if I am looking at her as if something's wrong or she's asking me questions and giving her a tone that might show up in my voice, right? Yeah. She's feeling judged. She doesn't feel safe to be herself around me. So my role is to provide this foundation of stability emotionally, because the guy's emotional range, we're in this little box.
Yeah.
Emotional range is way out here. And so their chaos, what I call internal chaos, just more emotional range, is different than ours. So we need to be more solid emotionally. And when I can do that, this chaos that sometimes gets directed at us men, my role is to stand strong and to just listen intently, looking her in the eyes, not to be texting while and half listening, not to have my remote control half listening to what she's saying, right? What was that? Oh yeah, what, oh, I missed that. Can you repeat that? Right? Those things all create instability in the connectedness. I don't feel understood anymore is what's going on in the feminine mind. He doesn't care. He's not listening to me. He's not valuing me.
Got it.
So that's a big deal. So if I am emotionally solid and willing to listen to this, sometimes what I call a tropical storm will show up and will be rained down on me. Do I run to my cave? In my opinion, that's an error because I've done that.
Yeah.
Unknowingly, I don't want to deal with it. However, if I recognize it for what it is, if I'm listening to her intently, looking at her closely, sometimes a feeling shows up that I realize, wow, this isn't about me, maybe 10%, but some of it's about her own inner chaos. And my role is to just be stable, acknowledge any shortcomings that I might have.
Got it.
Right? I'm sorry, not to defend myself, but just to acknowledge my part in whatever emotional stuff that exists. And then rainbows and sunshine comes out and it goes away.
Awesome.
But if I argue back, if I get defensive, it escalates this thing. And then we're into a place where I don't want to be.
Got it.
And so that's something men can do. So women, because a lot of my clients are executives and business professionals, women are very stressed today, more so than probably ever before. They're in the workplace. They're primarily in charge of the household. Sometimes there's children. And so they've got a lot on their plate. And what happens is that they get into the workplace and they rise up the ladder sometimes. And so they're directing people. And then they come home and want to direct their husband.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't go well for us, as you know. We don't want to be directed, right?
Yeah.
We want the you that we met that was radiant and happy and light and playful and teasing and sensual and all these beautiful characteristics of the feminine. That's what we're looking for. And so when you're anything but those things to us, the softer side of you, not this all business in the house side of you that's so effective in the workplace.
Yeah.
We're looking for your softness. That's what attracts us.
Awesome. You know, as you're saying that, that's one of the things I'm noticing with the relationship I have right now is if I'm doing something, you know, such as watching the TV or playing one of those stupid phone games or something like that. As soon as she comes in the room, I shut it off and I just sit there and listen to her. Yes. And what she does is she comes over to me and she actually wants to know more about what's going on in my life, you know, and all the different things that are going on. And so, yeah, well, thank you, because that just showed me that we're in the right step with our
absolutely.
So, which brings us, so you were saying the stabilize.
Yes.
So how do we go about stabilizing, which is the second step?
Well, the two pieces that I just mentioned absolutely help stabilize the connection. If I am playing my role correctly, right, which is to be strong, to be solid, to honor my word, my commitment, I'm going to be home at 9. I'm home at 9, not 10, not 10:30. I'm going to go fix this thing in the house, to do that, not to have her bug me every week. Hey, when are you going to get to that thing? When are you going to get to that thing? So when we do those things, we don't honor our word as men. We diminish not just connection, but we also diminish trust. And that's something that we don't recognize. And when trust goes, respect also follows it out the window. So when we do those types of things, we do stabilize the relationship. And when the feminine is soft, when the feminine is playful, lighthearted, teasing us, that absolutely stabilizes the relationship. However, if they're all over us, criticizing us, treating us with contempt, if we see this directing thing, telling us what to do, that's not going to stabilize the relationship.
Got it. That is awesome. I mean, I'm learning so much. I hope you guys at home are learning as much as I am. This is good stuff. So now we go into this third step. What is that third step?
To address the real issues. As I mentioned earlier, in my opinion, communication is never the real issue. Communication is a symptom. I want to treat the source cause of the conflicts or the disconnect in the relationship. And so primarily, that is a function of alignment. What are my views on being married versus my spouse? What does it mean to be married versus my spouse? Does that mean I can have an emotional relationship on Facebook with somebody? Does that mean I can see somebody else outside the relationship? Does that mean I can go do my thing and ignore them? Does that mean I can take them for granted and just because we're married, that's okay? Does that mean I can withhold sex because I'm irritated at them? So we all have different rules. And if we're not aligned on the vision that we have about what it means to be married and what we're working towards, what we're trying to bring into each other's lives, then we're going to struggle. If I am a saver, my wife is a spender, we're always going to be in conflict. If I believe that children should be free to do their own thing and my wife believes they should be disciplined, we're always going to be in conflict. So alignment is a big, real issue. The second real issue is the factors that create disconnect. A lack of connection, and from what I understand, is the number one cause of divorce. Today, women initiate about 80% of divorce. Unbeknownst to men, we often are caught off guard because, as you know, everything's good. What do you mean?
Yeah.
We're not always aware.
Yeah.
The issue.
I don't get what's wrong. No.
What's wrong with you? I'm good. Right. Unfortunately, because we don't understand relationships as much as women do, they tend to be better at connection than guys are. You know, we're built more for freedom, do what we want, when we want, where we want, and they're built for connecting with each other.
Right.
And so they want to be connected with us. And if we don't know how to create connection or how it can slip through our fingers, because that's what happens when we shift, and I'm not the man my wife dated early on or even was married to early on. If I'm under stress from work or pressure, maybe my temper's short. Maybe my patience is short. Maybe I don't treat her with as much attention or reassurance as she needs. Maybe she doesn't value me in her life or forgets to value me in her life. So those things all create disconnect. Those are real issues. When we fail to value each other, it creates disconnect. There's this term I call benign neglect, which is we do neglect each other. We take each other for granted, not intentionally. We don't intend to make our work more important. We don't intend to make the kids more important. We just do. We don't intend to make this hobby more important.
Mm-hmm.
We do. And so because of that, people feel resentful, bitter, unvalued, unappreciated, and ultimately unloved. And one of the signs, in my opinion, for a disconnected marriage is when somebody says, I love them, but I'm no longer in love with them. This in love is a feeling of connection.
Yeah.
Right? This sexual chemistry, that's the affectionate aspects of the relationship.
Right.
So those are the two biggest factors that I see. Rules about alignment, rules about life, marriage, and second, the disconnect of the couple.
Okay. So obviously you have to do the first two to be able to even talk to each other to find out what's broken or, what the real issues are.
That's right. That's right. But if you were to just work on communication, you'll never feel connected to this person. I had a couple a number of years ago that spent 3 years in a particular style of couples communication. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But anyway, Imago maybe. So 3 years of learning how to talk with each other. They even had a special term they called for like a couples timeout kind of thing, where they could go one at a time, listen like two professional people, air their views, take turns, work to solve their problems. Unfortunately, the couple lost their connection. They felt nothing for each other. They became friends, but there was no passion, no intimacy, no romanticized version of connection whatsoever. They did not feel connected. And ultimately, they used me to facilitate their divorce. They were so far apart because all they had done was talk from this neutral place. They were talking as two professionals, and they couldn't get themselves out of it. And they chose to divorce, which is a fascinating thing.
Wow. I'm going to see if I can challenge you one little bit here, just to
That's good.
Because I love what you have here, but I want to get these guys some bonuses stuff.
Yep.
So I do know one of the comments or one of the things I read, you say there's simple mistakes that couples do unknowingly that cause conflict and separation and that loss of intimacy. Can you give us a couple of those unknown mistakes?
Yes. The very first thing is that we often say things to our partner that we wouldn't even say to our best friends. There's nothing like a relationship partner who can push your buttons.
Yeah.
Maybe family members, mom, parent, dad, whatever, brother, sister. But besides that, your intimate partner is the one who will push your buttons. How we respond, how we react to that, those are little mistakes. This issue of stress. Stress is the biggest thing that creates disconnect, and we fail to understand the impact it has on us. You could have a family member who is struggling with an illness. We could have a challenge at work. We could have a challenge with our child. It could be any number of things that create tension within us that we unknowingly serve out to our partner in little tones of voice, in little failures to acknowledge them. And as I mentioned, valuing our partner is a big thing.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I see is, what are we working towards? I mentioned this earlier, but what is our vision? How do we want to feel when we're with each other? Not so much for me, what are we going to do with our lives? Where are we going to retire? Where are we going on vacation? That's not the vision I'm looking for. I'm looking for, how do we want to feel when we're together? Do we want to feel like we have to walk on eggshells? Do we want to feel completely disconnected? Or do we want to feel like we've been connected forever? Do we want to feel understood? Do we want to feel that we can be totally comfortable just sitting with each other together, watching a sunset, not even talking? Oftentimes, couples can't even go out to dinner by themselves. They have to have 2 or 3 other couples around, because the last thing they want to do is be there alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So these are the types of things that create a diminishment of value in your partner.
Okay. I get that. I sure appreciate that. I know I threw you for a little curve there, but you did great. With finishing this up, because it looks like on time wise we're getting to that time where I got to shut us off. But before that, I know you have a gift for these guys.
Yes.
Could you tell us about the gift?
Yes. If they go to my website, which there will be a link for, 90minutemarriagemiracle.com, this is my book. They can get the first 50 pages of my book for free, as well as happy marriage tips every week if they choose. They get some great insights about what to do today that will work. So there's immediately useful things if somebody's interested in learning.
Nice. I know if your tips are as good as what you just had today, these guys are in for a treat. So I want to recap a little bit about those 3 basic steps of the marriage repair process. So for you guys at home, the step 1 is to stop the decline of the relationship. And after you stop that decline, then you go into the step 2. Now, if you want to add anything to these, go for it, because you're the expert. I'm not. But the second one is to stabilize the feelings of connection. So we're gonna get that so that we get stabilized in our relationship. And then in step 3, this is where the meat of it is where you address the real issues.
Yeah.
Man, Jeff, I appreciate this. This is good stuff. Do you have any last insights, any last tips that you want to give to these guys?
Yeah, I do. There's a couple of things. The first of which is, if you don't know what to do to stop the decline, to stabilize the relationship, to address the real issues, you've got to be willing to learn. There are lots of people out there to reach out to. There are books out there to read. There's a lot to do. Are you willing to do what's necessary? And you have to be honest with yourself. Most, in my experience and opinion, most relationships cannot be solved on your own. You don't have perspective. It's very difficult to work on issues with a couple that's disconnected by themselves. Right? We don't really want to talk to each other or even work on things when we're disconnected. So the big mistake that couples make is trying to fix the relationship on their own. It often makes things worse. And the other thing I want to mention is that, in my opinion, something to avoid is an overabundant use of texting each other. In this technology-driven world, instant communication by text can be great if I'm picking up something at the grocery store, or we're picking up our son or daughter at a certain time, or, hey, I love you, and we sent this little text out. But often couples argue by text for hours and days, and you have these little words on this little screen with no context, no voice inflection. And I have had couples who will argue for days in their own home by text. They cannot talk to each other. And so the world of social media, people spending more and more time on Facebook, reconnecting with old flames on Facebook, these are the types of things that create disconnect and misalignment in the marriage. So these are all more things to avoid. I tell people to do not text your spouse anything unless it's an errand, it's a clarification of a time you're going to be home, or some innocuous little, thing or a kind word, but that's it. Never get into any disagreement or misunderstanding by text. Pick up your phone, call them. It's much more successful.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeff. I mean, this was an awesome, I just love this. I love learning from you guys, so I appreciate you and all the insights you've given to us. So thanks so
Great
much.
to be with you, Roger. Thank you so much.
Well, folks, you've been hanging out with Jeff Forte, and I am Roger House, and I really want to thank you for joining us on this healing adventure that we're doing in Healing Your Relationship Summit. What I'm going to do is remind you to check your email tomorrow for the upcoming interviews, because you're going to learn so much more from all these different experts that are out there. I just love you guys. So until then, live in love, peace, joy, and appreciation. See you tomorrow.